this is Russ. Hey, I'm heading out of Costco. Yeah, interesting. First off, let me say this. It's 8 degrees outside right now. Yeah, it's really cold. But an interesting thing happened while I was at Costco. In the checkout line, and if you've ever been to Costco before, you might remember too that after you've paid for your items, you don't just walk out of the store. They have people that check to make sure that the items that you have purchased is actually on your receipt. So they claim that this is so that you don't get overcharged for stuff. If it says that your receipt says it's got 9 items in there and you only actually bought 6, then obviously there's a problem. Then it's the person's responsibility to kind of make sure that you don't get overcharged. That's what they say, okay? But on the flip side of that is also if you have more items than you were charged, then Costco is gonna lose money if that happens, right? So we're in the checkout area, waiting to get out of the warehouse, and there's this guy arguing with the lady who's there to check the receipts. Apparently, it looked like he was charged for a certain quantity of items, but he had more items than what the receipt said. So, of course, he's claiming, well, that's not his fault. That's Costco's fault if they didn't charge him for something. And I kind of believe that he is correct in one sense, because the items that he had too many of were wine bottles. You can't check out wine bottles on your own, right? You've got to have someone approve that, because it's the 21 age approval thing, right? So if they didn't scan it properly, it's not that he tried to steal 3 extra bottles, is that they didn't catch the 3 extra bottles. And so at the end of it, and we can see that the line is backing up like crazy now because people are trying to get out and there's only one person doing the checkout. So apparently a manager comes over and he's trying to assess what's going on, and he basically tells the guy that they forgot to charge him for 3 bottles. It's not like he didn't do it, because obviously he didn't scan it himself. All right, it's their mistake. So to speed things along, he just says, take the 3 bottles, I'm gonna head out the door. So the manager took the extra 3 bottles, and that was the end of that. So I guess when they do these checks, it's a protection for both the consumer, but also a protection for Costco, that they don't end up losing products that in his case weren't charged for. But if you're the guy, you kind of feel bad, because it kind of looks like you're trying to steal something when he obviously didn't. All right, it wasn't his fault. I'll guarantee you it wasn't his fault. If it was any other item other than liquor, wine, it was wine bottles in his case, then I would say, okay, maybe he didn't scan it, he just kind of stuck it in there, right? But not for liquor. All right. So anyway, I don't blame the guy. It's kind of embarrassing to him. I don't blame the guy. This was definitely Costco's fault. I don't know if they apologized to him or not, but I just saw the manager take the bottles out of the cart and then he was walking off with it. So that's the excitement for the day. All right, now I am actually on my way going to a grocery store to pick up some items. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come right back and we'll continue talking about the main thing I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. All right, so sit tight. I'll be back in a moment. All right, I am back. Yeah, what I wanted to talk to you guys today about was a thing called in-ear monitors. In-ear monitors, aka earbuds. Yeah, they call them in-ear monitors for musicians because back in the day when musicians were playing music live, they'd have these stage monitors facing them, They're usually on the floor. They're called floor wedges. And the reason for this is that, you know, if you have a PA system and the main sound system is aimed toward the audience, it's very hard for the musicians to hear each other playing because they're standing in different areas of the stage. And if all they heard was the sound coming out of their amplifier, you know, if they're a guitarist or a bass player or whatever, a drummer, they wouldn't hear everybody else. So what they used to do is they would put floor monitors. They would have speakers on the floor aimed directly at the band so that the band can hear some type of a mix that the sound engineer would give them so that they can hear everybody playing. Now, there's a couple problems with this, of course. If the microphone is running, which this usually is because the guy's singing and playing his instrument, those floor monitors could create feedback, where you have a squealing going on, right? So to eliminate this, we tend to wear in-ear monitors, in other words, earbuds, so that we can hear a mix through a little headphone, essentially, little ear monitors. But the nice part about the in-ear monitors today is that we can have individual mixes per individual person. So for instance, when I'm at church and I'm playing up on stage during our church service, I have a little mixer where I can actually say, okay, give me a little more bass, a little less guitar here, give me a little bit more vocal. I could actually hear it the way I prefer to hear it so that I can play at my best performance because I'm hearing it well and I can play to augment the sound, right? So the in-ear monitors has really changed the way musicians are able to perform. We actually play better because of it. I use an in-ear monitor when I'm playing at church. Now, another thing that the in-ear monitor does for the musician is there's a thing called a click track, okay? So in the past, you might have noticed when a band starts, the drummer will take his two drumsticks and he'll just click off 4 count. He'll just click, 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 and then we play, right? So this way, everybody starts at the exact same time. Otherwise, somebody will have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then start playing. Well, that doesn't look good, doesn't sound good. So we can eliminate that through the in-ear monitor, okay? Because there's a track that plays a click sound for us. And it essentially will count it down for us too. There'll be somebody on that click track, pre-recorded of course, that'll say, usually they don't just count 4. They'll count something like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you start, okay? So they give you a little heads up before they actually give you the 4 count or whatever the count happens to be for that particular song, whether it's a 3 count or 4 count or 6 count or whatever it is. So that makes it easier as well. And again, you know, these in-ear monitors, they're a little bit different than an earbud because, you know, they're wired a lot of times, but they don't have to be. They could be wireless. But the wire wraps around your ear and then it goes behind your head. So you don't actually see the wire hanging down in front of the guy. Plus it then doesn't get in front and where, you know, it gets in the way of your guitar or whatever when you're playing. So it's actually behind our head. And then there's usually a box that's connected to your belt or something. You know, it's like a little clip box. It clips to the belt. And then that will either be wired directly to that mixer or wirelessly sent to that mixer, okay? So the in-ear monitors has really changed the way musicians play. And we hear better because of it. You know, it isolates, if you have a good in-ear monitor, it isolates the outside sounds and only really allows the sound from the monitor of your ear for you to hear. So you actually have a pretty decent mix, and then you can play, you know, softly, loudly, whatever, you know, to make the sound better of that song. So now here's the controversial part I wanted to bring up and try to get your opinion on this. You can also augment the sound of a band by adding additional instruments to be played along with the band. All right, here's what I mean by that. Let's say you're playing with a band that has maybe a keyboard player, a guitarist, a bass player, and a vocalist, the drummer, okay? But maybe there's some string parts that you want in that song, you know, like an orchestra part, right? Violins. Now, usually we would ask the keyboard player to play that on his keyboard, but maybe what he's playing is so complex, he doesn't have time to, you know, also put his hands up and play a string part. So we could actually play the string part pre-recorded along with the live stuff through the main sound and of course through our in-ear monitors as well. Okay, many bands do this, many worship bands do this. Okay, we actually will augment the sound of the real band with extra instruments that were already pre-recorded in the click track and then played along for the house to hear. Now they don't hear the click, they would just hear the instrument plus all the other live instruments that are being played. So now, here's what came to mind when I first had to do this at church, okay? The first thing in my mind was Milli Vanilli. Remember Milli Vanilli? Where they were caught lip syncing to their songs? Yeah, I kept thinking, hey, we're kind of doing what a Milli Vanilli would have done, except with instruments, of course. Now the argument to that would be, well, not really, because you are actually playing your instrument, we're just adding some additional ones to fill out the sound. What do you think about that? Put a comment. Do you think that's good? Or do you think that's not true live recording? Live playing, that is, okay? It's controversial, for sure. Our band does it, and many other church bands do it as well, because they have access to these things where, you know, they send the song, well, they send us the song several days before we actually perform it. I usually get a finalized set list by Wednesday, and then we perform the song on Sunday. Now, we don't actually rehearse it much at all. People always ask, well, your band sounds so good, but do you guys get in the middle of the week to practice? No, we don't practice together. We only play the song one time through before the church service actually starts. Actually, we only play it maybe less than an hour before we actually perform it. And we only practiced it once together. And the reason we only need that is because they will send you the song through an app and say, these are the songs we're playing. So you can hear what the song should sound like. But then they'll also send you your parts. It'll basically tell you this is what the guitar part on that song basically should sound like. And they expect you to learn that part. And they'll isolate each part for each individual instrument, okay? So you could really learn the song on your own by practicing to the stuff on the app. And then when everyone comes together, as long as you play your part that way, and then you hear the click track, so you kind of hear the clicking going on and any augmented stuff they want you to hear to help you along, you're just playing the same way you would have done when you practiced. So really, you don't even need to practice together, except maybe the one time to make sure everything goes well. So when people hear our band, they go, wow, you guys are really good. You guys must practice a lot. No, we only played it one time, that's it. So anyway, it's through technology like this that has made practicing easier for the individual musicians. You know, and some of the people, of course, you know, don't have time in the middle of the week to do a practice, right? They got things going on, they work a regular job. So giving them the time to practice on their own is actually better, okay? So, but what I wanted to find out from you is your thoughts on this whole thing about the click tracks. Now, the click tracks, I think, is important to keep us all together and in sync, because throughout the song, you'll hear the click, 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 click. So you know where the beat should be. So nobody's going faster or slower than the next guy. Everyone's actually in sync, right? But what I want to find out from you is, what do you think about this augmented type stuff? I mean, if you didn't have the augmentation of other instruments helping along, the band would sound less full. And now I'm not talking about major instruments, like they're not replacing a bass track because there's no bass player there that week or anything like that. They're never going to do that because that would look ridiculous. What they're doing is they're adding some extra things that the band cannot perform on their own because maybe we don't have enough people to play that part, right? Like string parts. I mean, people usually think the keyboard player is there playing those extra stuff on the top, but he may not be. It may be actually a track that is doing that for him, and he's just playing his keyboard parts, his piano parts, or whatever. Okay, so I would say maybe 85% of the band is truly the band you're hearing, and maybe 15% of what you're hearing is augmented things to fill out the sound of maybe instruments that you don't have, or little things that'll help out. So, I mean, it would be ridiculous to do this. Okay, let me give you an example why it would be ridiculous. Let's say you have a vocalist, but you don't have any backup singers, and then you add backup singers to the main vocalist's sound. Now that would be ridiculous if you heard extra voices coming out and there's only one guy standing up there. Now that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Okay, they don't do stuff like that. Okay, I'm just talking about one or two instruments that will help fill the sound out a little bit more. All right, anyways, that's all I have for you guys for today. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think about this augmenting of sound in live bands today, okay? All right. Oh, and let me know too what you thought about that Costco thing too, all right? I'll talk to you guys next time.